Welcome to Voices of the Community, which explores critical issues facing Northern California communities. We introduce you to the voices of community thought leaders and change makers who are working on solutions that face our fellow individual community members, neighborhoods, cities, and our region. This is George Koster, your host. This episode is an epilogue to our 14-episode documentary series on the City of Stockton, California. In this episode, our voices are Stephanie Hatten and Nicholas Hatten, who share the story of Stephanie's son and Nicholas's cousin, Antwaune Burrise's death at the hands of the Stockton Police Department.
My name is Stephanie Durane Hatten. I was born in Bakersfield, California. I moved to Stockton, California at age 2. I am the seventh child of 8. I was raised in a home with a mother and a father. They both worked. That example was set. A lot of discipline. We were all encouraged to go to school, do the best you can do, and stay out of trouble. The words were real simple when we were given instruction by way of mouth. As I grew up, moving forward, continuous employment. I've always worked since age 14 through summer youth. And at 19, I conceived my first child, had him at age 20. That was my eldest son, Ray Timothy, who is now deceased. Then there came my son, Antwuane, 16 months later. And 4.5 years later, I had a daughter. I worked for the county for quite some time. It was at that time, after I had all my children, that I too made some choices that weren't so appropriate. And they sent me off kilter, and I ended up being away from my family for possibly 2 years. That's something that I do share because it is a part of my learning and understanding how important choices are. I came home, I re-educated myself, and I was sworn in as a state certified addiction specialist. But I kind of skipped. Growing up in the neighborhood on the east side of town, there was a lot of family on the east side of town. So just about every street there was family or people that felt like family, because that was the love that we grew up in on the east side of town. And I tried to live out there, but that's when gangs were coming into effect. And I was very concerned about my sons. And that was my cue to remove myself from the east side of town. And I started to live further out north because my mother said it would probably be safer.
So it sounds like education was very important to the family. And then it also sounds like you carried all of those wonderful family values forward into your family.
In having children myself, and once again, in making the choices that I made that disrupted my life, it was those values that I restored. And in bringing up my children, I taught them respect for the community, respect for others, just being an approachable person. And my daughter has been successful. It has allowed her to be a psychiatric technician nurse. She wants to be a nurse, but that fitted well in what she's doing today. Ray Timothy, unfortunately, he was such a kind person, would always greet you with a smile. And I'm quite sure Nicholas can confirm that. He was just a joy to be around. But he had a mental illness that occurred when he was 16. He was one of the top basketball players for his high school, and someone slipped him something and it just damaged his brain. So it killed his basketball career. But as I recall him, he just smiled, always spoke when you approached him or he approached you, never had a harsh thing to say about too many people. Antwuane was always my curious one. So I really instilled in him, the respect for law and just doing certain things that were not appropriate, and for him to stay focused on his choices. And for the most part, Antwuane listened. He made it for quite some time. He had a difficult time because he was a big child, far taller than any of his cousins or his brother. And so he was always misunderstood, and that brought misunderstanding and anger. So that caused him to rebel, if I may, and have an attitude towards people who misinterpreted him for his size and how he was. But the family knew he was a very loving person. He was always respectful. I've never had any of the elders tell me that he was disrespectful in any way. And my mother will, if she was here, she would certainly confirm that because she adored him. But I would say that I did transfer all my upbringing that was good and beneficial to my children. And for that, I'll be grateful for.
Sounds like a great older brother and great mentorship. So in growing up in East Stockton, do you have any favorite moments of growing up in Stockton? And then I think the other follow-up question to that would be, what are some of the same issues that you grew up with regards to police, the government, et cetera, that you still see today?
My fondest memory is being able to walk to the corner store and feel protected. 3 blocks up without my parent, just me and my sisters, and going to see Mr. Emo at the store. We thought we were grown when we had that privilege. And I just remember skipping and having this 25 or 50 cents and just being able to go in there and spend. And it was an education and all that. And that was fun to us because at times it was about 7 of us that, from the neighborhood that we'd meet up and we'd walk to the store. I've never had good memories of police. Every time as a child and coming up, I've always only noticed them when they were being what I know now is abusive, and what I know now what was wrong, hurting people. But I thought that's what they do, And then my view changed because there was a time living in the North area when the police got familiar with Ray Timothy. He would walk off. They would literally pick him up, not cuff him, and ask him, Ray, does your mom know you're not at home? And they'd bring him home. But I just had that small experience with our police department that was so positive. And that's why I still hold on to the faith in the police, because of those precious moments that they brought my child home who had walked off. But it's so different than what I saw growing up, fast cars and skidding and loud voices. That was my only encounter of them until my son, Ray Timothy, the kind officers that would bring him home. And then that's really sad because that's my only memory of the police that I cherish. My mother taught us, your brothers will protect you because they won't. She taught us to stay away from them. I didn't know why, but we grew up. If something happens, tell your brothers. It was never call the police.
Thank you. That was a very good story with regards to Ray Timothy. I'd like to turn to you sharing, and I know this is going to be a painful story, but on July 15th of 2020, your son Antwaune had a deathly encounter, if you will, with the Stockton Police Department.
Yes, he did. I was doing what I do. I'm a certified addiction specialist. I have been for over 20-something years. That's what my career is. And I was on the phone with a patient who was in crisis. I received a phone call, and I'm not allowed to answer wildlife, but it just kept coming through. And, I let the people know I did because it kept coming through. And it was my grandson. And he said, Mom, because that's what they call me, something's happened to my dad at my dad's house. You better get over there. So as I'm driving, I still got the patient on the phone, and I'm trying to help him because he's in crisis as well. And it wasn't, and I still had like 15 minutes left of the session. I'm trying to stay composed. But when I pulled up, I saw yellow tape. And it was at that point that I knew my son was dead. I just knew it. I didn't know what happened, how it happened, or whatever. I stayed on the scene. My daughter went up behind the levee because we couldn't get in. And I could hear her screaming and yelling, did you kill my brother? Where's my brother? But she could see his daughter, who was handcuffed. They had taken her phone. That's why she couldn't call. She just was able to tell her brother, call Mama. And they took her phone, they handcuffed her. And I could see his wife, and I can see my 9-year-old grandson. My daughter couldn't. She's telling me this. And the wife is saying, there's a body. And I'm talking to my daughter on the phone because I can't, because of my disability, I can't go up on this levee. Moving forward, body rolled by, covered, massive blood at the head. But it's huge because now my son is 6'9", but it's a huge body, but she can't see her face. And she's screaming and yelling, and I can hear her. Did you kill my daddy? Is that my daddy? Did you kill him? Dad, this is what she's saying. I could quote her as if it was yesterday. And they're totally ignoring her. And for hours we waited until finally my daughter-in-law asked to be removed. But to tell his story, Antwaune woke up. Elisa bugged him, moved that car. Everybody knows Antwaune has multiple cars. That was his thing. He was in an unauthorized stall. So Lisa, on her way out, said, "You better move that car." A few hours later, he got up, turned on his bath water, snatched his keys and his pajamas, went to move his car. He backed it out. He walked 11 stalls down, plus over a big dumpster. So we could say 12 stalls, if I may. But my son walks with a limp. He was severely injured back in 2001, the day before 9/11, left him with the inability to run. He barely walked. He was paralyzed for 2.5 years from the waist down. But back to his story, he got in his car and he said a wow. And how do I know this? I listened at the body cam. They're describing my son, how big he is. He's not fat. He's sitting in his car multiple minutes. They describe him. They watch him walk out his house and get in his car. So he backs it up and he proceeds to go to the right. Around the complex, his mother-in-law lives. So he has to pull further to the right of anything to open that door to get them legs out. So what I'm assuming Antwaune did, because it didn't appear in the video, he was even aware of the police behind him because he was in a Lexus or something. But Antwaune pulled in and he pulled out a little bit like he does and then maneuver it so he can get that door open and get out. Well, when he pulled back that small amount, I saw the officers looking for him. I could see the video and he's just pulling back. And then I can hear what I know now as the critical response team holler beanbag. And they opened fire on him with real bullets. They disregarded the command and they shot my son so many times in his head, in his back. And I could see the CRT team saying, "Keep your hands up." And I said, oh my God, my son had his hands up. But he wasn't dead yet with all those bullets. As I looked at his body and I examined the bullet holes and how they could occur, he's sitting in a BMW. His seat has to go all the way back because he hits the top. Antwaune raised up and turned. He must have saw Officer Griffin. That's all I can say why his head and back was exposed and they hit him in the back of his head. So he had to have turned around with his arms up to get the wounds that he got. Well, the wound to his back penetrated his lung, but they left him in the car for 9 minutes before they even approached. And then finally one officer says, it's not him. And they figured out how to turn off his car. And they just took him and slammed him down. But he was dead. But I think the most tremendous thing is when they dragged him across the cement. They handcuffed him. I knew my son was dead. I know death, but they still handcuffed him and started CPR. Antwaune was already dead. And it's confirmed by the autopsy reports. He died immediately after that. But watching the police give each other dap, shaking hands, how we good. Watching one go in another apartment and he's washing my son's blood off his hands and he's saying that this was a horrible person. He killed a lot of people. Now, mind you, Antwaune did go against the law. And I'm going to tell you where he went against the law. He liked them high-speed chases. Yes, he did. In them fast cars. After he was shot back in 2001 because he wouldn't gang affiliate, it was alleged, and he was arrested on a possession of a firearm. Antwaune has no strikes. Antwaune has nothing gang-affiliated documented. So on July 16, when the chief came out, respectfully, when I speak on him, because that's just the way it is, he presented a narrative about a man that I didn't even know. And the entire family who viewed the July 16th presentation by Chief Jones and spokesman Joe Silva, they were like, who are they talking about? It was unbelievable. And on further investigation and me being associated with somebody that had been a prior private investigator, we did our own because they just weren't helping me. That they gathered information from a criminal informant. They used information that wasn't verified. So when I went to go see the chief, I asked him, did you even ask if this was the truth? And he said no. All the things that they said about him were true. You said he tried to run over Officer Griffin. Body cam says no 7 times because I have 7 of them from 7 different angles. Because I asked, why did you kill my boy? And I just think they really crossed the boundary right there. They crossed the boundary.
So are you suing the police department or the city of Stockton? Is there a legal action that you're taking that people who are listening to the show can support? How can people who are listening today support your efforts?
I've been fortunate to have an attorney. He hasn't promised to hire, but he did because of the 6 month. He filed everything in federal court. I do have a GoFundMe, and I guess I don't really know how to do it because it hasn't caught the attention of anyone. So I'll seek assistance for that.
What's the name of the GoFundMe campaign?
Justice for Antwuane, bridging the gap between the community and Stockton PD. It's a GoFundMe so that I can put his bulletins everywhere, go meet different people in other towns that have invited me to come sit with them like yourself, just reaching out to me, and finances, because when he got killed, his wife of 16 years on her job, they put her out in 7 days and took her job. So now we're all living in one house. So finances have dwindled, if I may, but I'm going out there because I'm going to stand for what's wrong, because there's got to be a right that comes from that wrong. And my only focus is that blanketed immunity. I don't want to hear anything else but a breakdown of that, because that makes it legal.
Right. That's the blanket immunity of the police union's negotiation with the Stockton Police Department and the city, et cetera.
So, George, we learned last week that 90% of the complaints about Stockton PD are from 4 officers. And these 4 officers are still on the street. Put them on administrative leave until we figure out what's going on. And until you do that, you do not respect Black lives.
No.
And so has anyone been fired? Has anyone been put on administrative leave? No pay? Has anything changed?
Nothing's changed. David Wells is off the streets. He still has his gun, but he works at a desk. Blake Epperson, John Griffin, and the other guy, they work for the CRT, the Critical Response Team. In fact, the recent incident with that car that ran into the house, that police car that lasted about 2 weeks ago, that was the CRT team and the same car that was involved with the murder of my son, which should have been placed away for evidence, but it ended up in somebody's house. But Epperson is a part of that, a critical response team. And I was amazed when I looked and it said car 4200. I'll never forget that car. So change has to come. Not yesterday, but now. There's nothing else to talk about. This is what puts me over the edge, is it's been going on. And that's it, and that's all. What else is there to talk about? Tell me what else is there to negotiate. What do we have to figure out? There's nothing. As a member of this community, we need protection, and they don't respect us enough to do it. They offer us no protection. And as I speak to the youth, and I have engaged with these young people because I'm sick of these guns and all this violence. And do you know what they told me? Your police carry guns. We gonna be ready when they come to get us, because they gonna come get us. That is so hurtful to hear them. They're all on defense mode and they're killing each other and they're willing to kill a cop. What? It amazes me that everybody's on the defense. They're waiting for the next thing to happen from our police. And that's from youth to adult. To me, I'm angry about that.
And what can the city of Stockton do to change? Obviously, there's the whole police department issue, but what do you feel the city of Stockton can do to change its relationship with the African-American community in Stockton, as well as the rest of the community in Stockton, the people of color?
Well, they can start with being honest. An honest leader is a good leader. And I've learned that from the police. I work with probation, parole, SAC PD, SAC probation, federal. I've worked in those jobs. And these people are tremendous. Their word is their bond. And if they told me something, it happened or it was in effect. We have no honesty up there. So we can't even expect anything different if there's no honesty. And if you don't have honesty, where's your integrity? I need to worry about what you do behind those doors. I'm your citizen. I'm a part of your community. I should be at least satisfied in knowing when you go behind that door, if you say that this is going down and this is going to be fairly, then when you shut that door, why should I worry? But it's not like that. It needs to be dismantled, and someone needs to step in and do some interviewing. And with the body cams need to go to an outside agency, because the way they rigged that video with my son, I know that they rigged videos because they had them first. It's a lot in there that needs to be shut down. And we can't do it bit by bit. We need to do it as a whole so we can stand as a whole. And they're not willing to do that. Shut it all down.
So, George, I think the challenge for us is that we live and breathe this pain daily. And as hard as this is to hear my aunt in pain, I carry that every single day. How the hell do they expect us to respond to a police officer who is biased against us, to act professional and appropriate and kind, when we know the one thing this cop wants to do is to hurt us? And it's not easy. It's not easy because people assume, oh, you got to get over it. You know, slavery happened a long time ago. But when you have a relative who is sharing the pain of slavery today, it still hurts. And to see San Joaquin County dismiss Black pain the way that it has is infuriating. And I'm so full of rage. And I'm trying so hard to be peaceful, but this is wrong. This is wrong that we have to share our narrative in this way rather than people just understanding and accepting that that we're struggling.
So how can the community rally with Stephanie and yourself, Nicholas, and your family, and all the other numerous families in Stockton and San Joaquin County who've experienced the same thing that you have, together, to Stephanie's point, to help dismantle the system, to remake the system?
So I want to kind of put some positivity into this narrative. I didn't spend my youth around the Hatten family, but every time I saw them, they embraced me and showered me with love. And it's so interesting to hear people talk about, Black girl magic, because I saw that whenever I got to spend time with my aunts. And so for anyone that's confused, anyone that doesn't understand the struggle that is being Black in America, have that empathy, love unconditionally like my aunts did. That will help us. That'll give us the courage to fight. But right now, what we're hearing from San Joaquin County is they support their police unconditionally, like defund the cops. Who cares that they started off as KKK members? We want to keep our cops because we want to feel safe. Well, how about having empathy for why we don't trust cops? And if we can meet in the middle and have a healthy dialogue, that, I think, is what we all want.
And so, Nicholas, through your new organization, is part of the plan to actually facilitate a community-wide conversation?
Yeah, and this is the first. And kudos to my aunt for being so brave to share her pain. But we need people in Stockton to understand and to relate. I've lost 10 friends and two cousins, simply because they were born in Stockton, and that shouldn't be the case. And so we need more people to understand it's just not the plight of Black youth or Black men, because this county is taking down everybody who is not wealthy and who is not white. And that's the thing for us. But anything other than Black, he would not be dead.
No, I'm sorry that it was easy for them to create a monster because he was Black after they shot and killed him. He was a big Black guy. So it was easy to create a narrative to cover up. But had Antwuane been any other, in the calm manner, you can see him in the video, he's just cool, calm, just driving he just bought this car, so he's a little excited, figuring out, if he was a color other than Black, I bet you that he would have been captured as he walked out his door. That's what I guarantee. I'll put what last I have on that. They would have apprehended him. See, when you say BLM, right, that's a wide range. It's respect, it's healthcare, it's assistance. It's such a wide area when you say BLM, and people misunderstand. Of course, all lives matter. And that's coming from an African American. You darn right. Even them police lives matter. But when we go in specific, you'll shoot Antwuane, but you won't shoot the boy out north or from another neighborhood. You didn't pay enough to Ray Timothy at that doctor over 5 years, but this kid is cured. He's on the proper medication. And the professor from the University of Pittsburgh told me that, because I still wanted to know why my son was dead from scleroderma. And I met with that man, and he gave me so much information in layman's terms like that. We matter when it comes to saving our lives. Is that so hard? Are we so devalued that that doesn't matter, even when it comes to sickness? We have so many strives and struggles just to make it right here. And respectfully, to have you, a man of Caucasian, you know how long it took us to get here for us to know someone that cares? And that's coming from being African American, and I am sitting in front of an intelligent, decent man who happens to be of non-Black. Do you know how long it took us to get here? And we're grateful. We're always grateful.
I'm grateful for you sharing your story, and being a fellow Stocktonian means a lot to me. And I'm hoping that with Nicholas and yourself and the community can all come together to restructure the police as you would like to see them, and to Nicholas's point, to unweaponize all of the things that make Stockton Stockton. Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing your story.
You are welcome.
Love you, Auntie.
I love you too, and thank you, Neff. I love you for that.
That's it for this episode of Voices of the Community. You've been listening to the voices of Stephanie Hatten and Nicholas Hatten. Even with the convictions in the George Floyd case, the police are still killing 3 people a day, according to the New York Times. Fatal police shootings in the United States are increasing in 2021, with 213 civilians having been shot, 30 of whom were Black, in the first 3 months of 2021, according to Statistica Research. The research goes on to state that in 2020, there were 1,021 fatal police shootings, and in 2019, there were 999 fatal shootings. In March of 2021, the rate of fatal police shootings among Black Americans is 35 per million the population, which is much higher than that of any other ethnicity, according to Statistica Research. For more information about Nicholas Hatten's organization, San Joaquin County Together, go to howsanjoaquinworks.com. And for more information about Stephanie's GoFundMe campaign, search Justice for Antwaune Burrise on GoFundMe.com. We hope that you'll take the time to listen back to all of the episodes in our documentary series on the City of Stockton. You will hear from the voices of community leaders in Stockton who are working together to address the systematic issues facing Stockton and San Joaquin County. Go to georgecoster.com, click on Voices of the Community, and then click on the Stockton series. I want to thank my associate producer, Eric Estrada, and graphics wizard, Casey Nance of Citron Studios. Also, I want to give a very big special thanks to Leo Marquez and Adriana Broger at KWDC, which is hosted by San Joaquin Delta College in Stockton. Leo and Adriana have worked with us over the past 4 years to bring the many voices of Stockton community leaders in our Stockton documentary series to the Stockton and San Joaquin County community. You can listen to all of their local programming at kwdc.fm and take media classes at San Joaquin Delta College so you too can share your voice. Voices of the Community is a member of Intersection for the Arts, which allows us to offer you a tax deduction for your contributions. Please go to georgecoster.com and click on the donate link to make a donation to help us provide future shows just like this one. While you're on our website, you can enjoy our archived past shows, which feature community voices working on solutions to critical issues facing Northern California communities. And you can sign up for our newsletter to find out more about future shows, as well as shows and events from the organizations that are included in our episodes. Take us along on your next COVID walk by subscribing to Voices of the Community on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at George Coster, and we'd love to hear from you with feedback and show ideas, so send us an email to george@georgecoster.com. I'm George Coster in San Francisco, and thank you for listening.